Let's Perfect. Thank you so much for coming to our contractor training for the solar battery savings program. This meeting will be recorded. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are our table of contents. We will start by providing an introduction about community choice aggregators, commonly referred to as CCAs, as well as who San Diego Community Power is. Next, we'll get into the Solar Battery Savings Program overview, where we will discuss the program goals, the customer eligibility, a summary of the program in itself, and then incentive calculations. We'll end it off with our third item, which is the submittal process, where we'll go into depth about the enrollment and contractor portal that will be available to you. And next slide, please. Okay, starting off with introductions. My name is Tessa Tobar. I'm assisting Emily Fisher, our senior program manager responsible for this program. She developed the program and we are very excited to have this program. And we also have Jill Monroe. She is our senior marketing manager and communications at Community Power. She'll be here to assist with any questions you have regarding branding, marketing, or the website itself. And we are going to talk through community choice aggregators on the next slide. So to start off, we want to walk through what a community choice aggregator or CCA is. So back in 2002, California state legislature enabled community choice aggregators in California. This legislative bill stated that community choice aggregators would be local, not-for-profit energy providers overseen by elected officials, by local elected officials at that. While most of the action has been in Northern California, including some of the oldest CCAs, such as MCE and Sonoma Clean Power, CCAs have started growing in Southern California over the last 5 to 10 years, with San Diego Community Power forming in 2019. There are now over 25 operating CCAs across the state of California, which serves 200 cities and counties, delivering over 14,000 megawatts of clean energy to over 14 million customers. Next slide, please. And San Diego Community Power is one of those CCAs, or community choice aggregators, and therefore we are not-for-profit public agency that was formed in 2019 with the cities of San Diego, Chula Vista, Encinitas, La Mesa, and Imperial Beach that came together to establish a joint powers agency. We started serving our customers in 2021 and completed enrollment of the first round of cities in 2022. Last year, San Diego Community Power enrolled the city of National City and the unincorporated areas of San Diego County. We continue to provide reliable, cost-competitive electricity to our customers, and we roughly serve 60% of SDG&E's service territory that makes up nearly 1 million customers, making San Diego Community Power the second largest CCA or community choice aggregator in the state. Next slide, please. So now about how CCAs work. San Diego Community Power was formed to purchase clean energy on behalf of our communities, as you can see from the image left to right. This means that we're different from the traditional investor-owned utility, or IOU, in that we do not own or operate the energy grid for our customers. That's still handled by San Diego Gas and Electric, or SDG&E, as you can see in the middle of the graphic. Instead, we purchase the energy needed to supply our customers by contracting directly with renewable energy providers, And that energy is then delivered through SDG&E's existing power lines, as you see in the third part of the graphic to the right. This introduces competition and more local control in the energy market, allowing us to negotiate for cleaner and more local energy at competitive rates and to reinvest revenues into community projects and programs such as this one. As a community provider of clean electricity, we have the opportunity to support energy efficiency and decarbonization programs, develop more local renewable energy resources in the region, and invest in innovative clean technologies and energy-related job training. On to the next slide. Now we're going to get into the second part of our agenda, which is the Solar Battery Savings Program overview. So this slide has a lot of text and we're going to walk through it. We want to start off by saying that we created this program to help the industry with the transition to net billing tariff. We understand the value of net export is significantly reduced and impacted the economics of standalone solar and vastly impacting the industry. To improve project economics and support the solar and storage industry, we wanted to create an incentive program for storage. So as a reminder, on December 15th of 2022, the California Public Utilities Commission, or the CPUC, established net billing tariff as a successor of NEM 2.0, Net Billing Tariff NBT, or NEM 3.0. This officially went into effect on April 15th of last year, with San Diego Community Power operationalizing it in our billing system in December of 2023. We recognize that there is a lot of customer value to adopting a battery with solar because, one, it enables customers to reduce their energy bills by allowing the battery to discharge during on-peak hours. Secondly, by leveraging higher export credits, with the battery export often being higher in the evening hours. And lastly, specifically, San Diego Community Power is offering a significant upfront incentive to offset the initial cost of battery storage systems and a performance incentive for dispatching during a specified window that will align with our on-peak period at 4 p.m. to support the grid when demand is high and minimize the outages throughout the community. So as we take a look at the images on the right, these two illustrate examples of how customers can participate in this program, and really that they're both sides of the spectrum. In the top example, you can see the orange daily consumption line across the full 24 hours on a daily basis. And as you see around hour 7 and 8, or rather 7 or 8, the sun starts to go up and solar starts to be produced, and it is covering what the site is using in terms of their energy consumption, but also more than that, which is being used to charge the battery. In hour 16, when the on-peak period starts, the battery starts to discharge to the site. You'll see it's only discharging to the site until you get to hour 19, where this is showing the discharge window and essentially taking effect for this example. And in this example, the customer is discharging 50% of their battery. So some of that battery is still being used to discharge to the home for that full consumption that the home is using. And then the rest is going back to the grid. The customer would be getting paid for that 4 kilowatt hours over the 2-hour period for the performance incentive in this example. And then in the image below, the customer is participating the maximum amount of their battery or the majority of it. And you'll see again that the daily consumption line is in orange. And as the sun is going up, it's starting to overproduce and it's being used to charge the battery. In this example, the customer is only discharging their battery during the specified 2-hour window, and it's using about 80% of the battery during that time. As a reminder, that customer is being paid for that full discharge during that window, whether it's going to the home or to the grid. customers naturally will come to wonder, why would they want to participate in this? And for our Care and Fair customers, it may make sense for them to operate the program in this way so that they're able to reduce their electricity bills from around 20 to 30% during those on-peak hours. Additionally, those customers will have an 11-cent adder on top of their export credits, so it may make more sense for them to leverage. Lastly, customers that really want to support the grid may take this route to ensure that their battery is positively benefiting the grid during these peak consumption hours. And next slide, please. So now on to our program goals. Our first and primary goal is to continue solar and storage growth throughout our service territory. We've seen massive growth over the last couple of years, and we certainly don't want that to end. We're aiming for 50% of these incentives to go to our communities of concern, and we'll discuss what that means in a couple slides. Next is to support our agency goals with providing clean, reliable energy to reduce our demand on a daily basis during peak periods. Thirdly, we want to leverage non-San Diego Community Power incentives like the Self-Generation Incentive Program, or SGIP, or the Disadvantaged Communities Single-Family Solar Home DAC/SASH, or the City of San Diego Solar Equity Program, for our customers to minimize the overall cost of a new system. And finally, which is very important to us, is to build the strong relationships with our customers and also within the industry. Our organization is still somewhat new, and we need to continue to grow our exposure to our customers through this program, and we can really build those strong relationships with our customers and our contractors in the local region alike. Next slide, please. In regards to customer eligibility, participants must be an active community power residential customer that owns their roof. Please note that customers who have opted out of San Diego Community Power must return to our service to be eligible for this program. The system equipment must be interconnected and permitted by the agency having jurisdiction. Thirdly, the battery must be fully charged by on-site solar. This requirement aligns with our agency's goal to use clean energy as much as possible. Fourth, the batteries also can't simultaneously be participating or enrolling in any other active demand response program, like the Emergency Load Relief Program or the Demand Side Grid Support Program. And lastly, we're only accepting new batteries, which means existing battery systems are not eligible for this program. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is our program incentive categories. So you'll see on the slide here, and we'll show it again in a couple of slides, but we have two different categories for our upfront incentive. In the middle column, we have our market rate. And then to the right, we have our non-market rate. Our non-market rate customers are those that are enrolled in CARE or FARA, or are geographically located in a community of concern, which we'll talk about in the next slide. So you might be wondering, what is CARE and FARA? CARE and FARA are our financial assistance programs that are made available to support our customers that are having a tough time affording their bills. CARE is the California Alternate Rates for Energy program, and customers sign up to participate in this program, but to be eligible, they must participate in one public assistance program. The list of the public assistance programs is in our program manual on page 3, or they must meet the income guidelines shown on the left side of the screen. Customers that are registered in CARE receive a 30% discount on their monthly energy bill. And as we move to the right, FARA is the Family Electric Rate Assistance Program. Customers must meet the income guidelines, and then if they are, in the table on the right, they'll receive an 18% discount on their energy bill. I want to note that these are updated annually, and the rates shown here are effective from June 1st of this year through May 31st of 2025. So, communities of concern. This may be a new term for you, but something that is socialized at San Diego Community Power. We have, one moment, please. So our final category for the non-market rate includes customers located in a community of concern. You'll see the static map is available on the slide. However, an interactive map is available for approved contractors within the contractor portal. There, you'll be able to see the map and enter in home addresses of your customers to see whether or not they fall within a community of concern. For us, communities of concern are those that are scored in the top 25% for the disadvantaged communities under Cal EnviroScreen 4.0, the low-income communities under priority populations based on California Climate Investment Priority Populations, and areas defined by our member agencies within the Climate Equity Index report. Specifically, the cities of San Diego and Chula Vista have added additional census tracts to the communities of concern requirement. Communities of concern roughly equal 55% of our customers throughout our service territory. So I would certainly recommend that you use the map in the contractor portal to see if a customer, or confirm if they are within a community of concern or not, so that they might be eligible for a non-market rate incentive. Next slide, please. Okay, so back to this slide, but with a little extra. So for our market rate customers, these are customers that are not located in a community of concern and that are not enrolled in CARE-FARA. We're really looking through the middle column here. So for our market rate customers, there will not be a one-time upfront solar incentive. However, there will be a one-time upfront storage incentive of $350 per kilowatt hour based on the manufacturer data sheet's usable nameplate capacity. If it's not available on the spec sheet, we will be collecting that information from the approved battery manufacturers, and that will be available to you within the contractor portal that you can check out after this training. In this instance, $350 per kilowatt hour would roughly amount to $3,500 to $4,000 or so on average. This would amount to about 20 to 25% of the battery project cost. The upfront incentive can be paid out to whomever is delegated as the payee on the participant enrollment application. Please note that it could be the customer or yourselves as the contractor. We just need the name or business name of that payment, and that payment will be made within 30 days after we receive the permission to operate or PTO letter from you, the contractor. In addition to the upfront incentive, there will be an ongoing performance incentive of 10 cents per kilowatt hour for the actual battery performance during a daily dispatch for a 2-hour period that will coincide with the on-peak hours. I do want to note that the 10 cents per kilowatt hour is paid whether or not the battery is discharging to the home and or the grid. So it is paying that 10 cents per kilowatt hour for what the battery is discharging during that full dispatch window, or that 2-hour period specifically for 2024 and 2025. Additionally, I want to note that the 2-hour window for the remainder of this year and next year does align with those high export values in August and September. We really want to make sure that the customer is maximizing their benefits. And a preset schedule will be provided to the approved battery manufacturers that will be the same to our period for each month that will also show in a couple of slides. For example, in January, it may be from 6 to 8 every day, while in February, it may be from 7 to 9. This performance incentive is paid to the homeowner on an annual basis at the end of each year via a mailed check for 10 years. Next, we'll move to the column on the right. This is our non-market rate, which again includes our care and fair customers or those that are located in a community of concern. These non-market rate customers will have a minimal solar upfront incentive based on the kilowatt AC. It is up to $450 per kilowatt AC, which is roughly 10 to 15% of the solar system cost. We would like for our customers to also be eligible to leverage DAC/SASH, or in the City of San Diego's Solar Equity Program when applicable, including our Care and Fair-based customers. Then, the one-time upfront storage incentive will be up to $500 per kilowatt hour, again, based on the manufacturer's data sheets, usable nameplate capacity are around $5,000 to $6,000 on average, which would amount to about 30% or so of the battery project cost. The ongoing performance incentive will be the same at 10 cents per kilowatt hour for the actual performance during the daily dispatch. Moving on to the bottom half of the program details, we will be allowing customers to enroll for weekday or for weekday plus weekends, which is essentially 365 days per year, based on the customer. We hope that the majority of customers will want to participate for the full 365 days a year with net billing tariff and the impacts it can have for them to discharge their battery daily during those peak periods. The dispatch for 2024 and next year will be a 2-hour period. However, in future years, it may be extended to a longer duration, so it could be from 2 to 5 hours. Additionally, we want to provide customers flexibility in terms of how they enroll their battery. We want them to feel like they're in charge of their battery because they are, and they're investing in a valuable asset for the grid. As a result, we want to allow them flexibility in terms of how much they want their batteries to participate. At a minimum, however, they have to participate 50% of their batteries. But they can also choose different enrollment capacities for the summer and winter seasons each year. We are also providing some flexibility in terms of underperformance. In case there are days where the solar isn't able to fully charge the batteries due to overcast, or if the customer simply wants to opt out one day to ensure that they have power in case of an event. But we are expecting them to perform at 90% of their enrolled capacity each and every month. Finally, please note that there is a prorated clawback associated with the upfront incentive if a customer unenrolls in San Diego Community Power or the Solar Battery Savings Program within the first 5 years. This clawback will be evenly distributed over those 5 years. So if someone unenrolls within the first year, they will be responsible for returning the full upfront incentive payment. If it's the second year, they'll be responsible for returning 80%, third year, 60%, and so on and so forth. And my last slide. These are the dispatch. As I mentioned, this is for the remainder of this year and for next year. This will be nice to have as a reference when speaking to your customers, and we're happy to share this in another format if so requested. The dispatch windows will remain the same for the same 2-hour period for each month. If you didn't know already, battery manufacturers are also enrolled in this program. And with that enrollment, they will be agreeing to operationalize these windows so that the battery is dispatching the percentage enrolled during these 2 hours, whether it's discharging to the home or to the grid. Additionally, battery manufacturers will be responsible for sharing the battery performance data with us so that we can track the performance incentive and make sure the proper amount is paid out to the customer on an annual basis. Batteries must be grid connected to make sure that the percentage enrolled is hit each and every day. And for the next slide, I will be passing it off to Emily Fisher.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Tessa, for that wonderful overview. So we'll now be going into the submittal process and really how the portal works and everything that's required at each step of the process when submitting a project. So hopefully you all have had access to the portal. If you haven't, I definitely recommend working on getting in there and getting installed. I believe with your initial acceptance email, you should have received the portal guidelines or user guide that will show you how to log in. There are a couple different security emails that are sent with that, so apologies on that, but we do want to make sure it's secure. And as a reminder, there is just one email per each contractor associated within the portal. So if there is a better preferred email than what you originally used when you applied for the program, please feel free to send an email to solarbatterysavings@sdcommunitypower.org and we will update it. But when you do get into the portal, you will see this banner at the top. So it'll show maps, files, projects, budgets, and updates. If you click on the map, that is where you can check for the community of concern eligibility and the CARE/FARA participation. We'll go through those details on the next slide. And then under files, there's 3 different little windows you can select just below this banner here, which will have projects, templates, and accounts. If you go into projects, it will essentially show you all of the uploaded documents in order of timeline, so you can easily access any documents that you may have uploaded yourself and just make sure everything is in there. You can also look at that in the project side, but it's just something that's available for you to understand what's recently been submitted. And then you can look in the templates. Templates is a really key window here. So in there, we include the participant enrollment application for customers to sign. We have a fillable version so that you can simply just type it in. We have the T's and C's from OEMs. There are specific OEMs that are requiring that their virtual power plant T's and C's are signed, and we'll talk about that also in a couple of slides. There's a sizing tool. So per Tessa's presentation, she had talked about requiring the projects to have the battery systems charged by the excess solar. And so that is really key. We understand that a couple of battery manufacturers do have the ability to essentially forecast how the site's going to consume energy the following day and prioritize charging the battery specifically based off of weather and how the site's consuming energy. So that instead of the battery charging or being used to charge the home, it's going to the battery instead. But within the sizing tool, we're essentially making sure that the battery participation, so if it is 50%, 60%, 70% of that usable capacity, that can be charged on average on a daily basis across each of the months. So each of the 12 months, it needs to meet that. We are hopefully going to be releasing a recording of how to use that sizing tool in the near future. It does take a little bit of finessing to get kind of understanding of it, but we're happy to provide one-on-one conversations in the meantime to make sure you are all set with that sizing tool. But essentially, it requires the green button data. And then if you are adding new PV or the PV system was recently installed, it will require you to upload the hourly PV data in the kilowatts. So one thing to note, we have seen some that have come in with the watts. So just to make sure it is in kilowatts, and then it will show you on the analysis tab whether or not that system size will work for the the battery system size will work for the solar system size that's installed or being installed. And then we also have the portal user guide, which was also sent off to you when you were approved as a contractor. And then we also have a data authorization. So as Tessa mentioned, customers who have opted out of our service can re-enroll, and we have seen a lot of that happening over the last 2.5 months. And so when that is the case, we actually can't pull the data on our end, and so there is a data authorization form that's required if you're not sharing that green button data, or you want to have that data authorization signed in case the customer is concerned about any personal identifiable information being shared. So that's also in there, and I'm sure there's going to be more information in there too as we continue to progress in this program. And then the final window under files is accounts, and that's where you'll find your specific contractor documents. So your self-certification, your application. We're working on getting those all updated right now. So if they are blank, understand that they won't be for long, but something we're working through. And then the third window is the projects. So this is where you can view all projects and create new projects and upload specific project documentation. So we'll walk through those steps and what's required in a couple of slides as well. And then in budget, this is where you can view the budget tracker. It's also available on our program webpage. If you go to sdcommunitypower.org, we do have a programs tab at the top. And if you click on it, the first window that will fall underneath it is the solar battery savings program. If you click on that, you can also view the tracker. But essentially, it will show you how much funding is still available, what's been reserved, and what's been paid out. And then for updates, this is where you can view the weekly updates. We send weekly emails to all of the contractors approved in the program. If there are additional emails you'd like added to that, please send them our way and we can add it to the list. But essentially those updates include, any changes or clarifications that we need to make in the program in terms of questions that we've received from contractors or customers, and just making sure everybody has the same consistent understanding of how the program works. We also have Friday office hours. So those are Friday at 9 a.m. And there we just essentially allow contractors to open up for questions and we'll answer those questions. And so it's a great way of just kind of getting refreshed on the program and anything that, you've got concerns or questions over, to voice those to us. And then other specific program updates, we'll likely put this slideshow in there so that you can access this for future reference. So going into the map, when you go into the portal and you click the map button, something similar to this will show up. It's slightly different colored. The orange represents if you're a market rate customer. The blue will show if you are within a community of concern. But there will be a little search bar up here in the top, and there you can enter either the customer account number or their mailing address. I've actually found that it's more preferred probably for the mailing address to be entered in terms of finding where it is on the map. And then you can locate the customer. A little pin will pop up based on the information that you've selected, and you can click on that pin, and then a box will appear saying community of concern, or COC, care, and FARA, and there will be a Y or an N next to each of those boxes in the table. And Y indicates yes, that they are in a care, FARA, or community of concern, and N indicating no, they're not in a care, FARA, or community of concern. And so this way you can understand what that incentive may be for the customer. If you make a mistake on that participant enrollment application, we also check this on our end. And so if it does happen to be within a community of concern and it's not shown on that participant enrollment application, we will update it and we'll put a note within the portal as well. So you know that that project has been or is within a care or FARA program or within a community of concern, and they're eligible for that higher incentive. And so next onto the files tab. So here you'll see files, and then below the projects, templates, and accounts. So like I mentioned before, templates is really like the key window here for understanding what you can look at. And so like I mentioned before, in here we have the participant enrollment application for you to download for customers. We have the O&M T's and C's. So specifically Tesla, Fortress, Enphase, and Panasonic currently require their virtual power plant T's and C's to be signed by customers. And so that is something we will need submitted before we can process that upfront incentive payment for those specific battery manufacturers. On our webpage and also in the portal, we do have a link for the battery products that are approved in the program. So it has the battery manufacturers, the battery products, whether or not they require T's and C's, and then those usable capacities associated with each of those batteries. And so you can reference that to make sure everything is updated appropriately for the specific battery you are selecting. And then additionally in here, there's the system sizing tool, which is a requirement now for projects going forward to make sure that they're sized appropriately. The portal user guide, as I mentioned, which I highly recommend using if you haven't gone into the portal yet. And then that data authorization for customers who have recently enrolled within SDCP. And then onto the projects tab. So next to files is projects. And in here, this is where you can see all of your specific projects. And so you can sort by status and search and add new projects. So on the left-hand side, sorry, this is a little cut off, but on the left-hand side, it gives you a search button. So you can search for specific project ID, you can search for customer name, address, however you want, but you can search through there. And then you can also search for when a PTO letter has been submitted. So if you know that you're looking for projects that have been finalized, you can filter for that. And then you can also add projects obviously in here as well. So we'll walk through that step. So when you click on that add project button, this window here will show up. And so you're required to input everything that has a star associated with it. So that includes the customer name, the address, city, zip code, account number, customer email, and then the existing solar and the new solar information. So we need the KWDC, KWAC, and then the annual production, and then the total incentive at the bottom. And so for the existing AC, we're really looking for what's already been installed. If you don't have that information, if you can guess, not guess, but do an accurate assumption based off of how many panels are there, and if you happen to know the panel brand, essentially figuring out what that KW, AC, and DC would be. But it is okay if it is a bit of a guesstimation on that end. And then for the new solar, though, we do require obviously to make sure that that's exact based off of what's being designed for that system. And so the KWAC is really what the PV modules, the statewide PV spreadsheet has, looking at the PTC value for that specific brand and multiplying it by the inverter efficiency and then obviously the number of panels. If it is a little off, we'll adjust it when we review it on our end. But that is something that we're looking for in terms of specifically customers that are leveraging that solar incentive and making sure that that's as accurate as possible. When they do have a solar incentive associated with it, when that PTO letter is submitted, we will adjust it. It doesn't vary a whole lot, but in case it does, we will adjust it based off of the KW that's available in that PTO letter. And then, yeah, the final upfront incentive payment. Again, if that is incorrect, we will adjust it on our end and put a note within the portal to let you know if anything needs to be changed. So then you'll click continue, and the next step of this is entering in the battery product. So you'll select the OEM, and then the battery products will have a filtered list based on the manufacturer that's selected. The nameplate capacity will auto fill in based on the data on the back end that we have for that battery. And then the number of batteries, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the summer enrollment, the winter enrollment. So as Tessa had mentioned before, we are requiring customers to participate at minimum 50% of their battery, but they can participate more. And so in here, this is where you enter that information. And then additionally, we are allowing customers the flexibility to decide if they want to participate for weekday only, or if they want to participate 7 days a week. And then finally, the participant enrollment application. So that needs to be submitted along with the system sizing tool. We are requiring the contract also be submitted, and we'll talk about this in a couple of slides. But if the contract is included within that participant enrollment application, we'll check that on our end. And so it's not a required field in here. But in case it's not, it's a separate document, please update both of those or upload both of those. And then when you go into the projects page, you'll see essentially the list of all of the projects here. This is essentially from our demo or dev environment. And so here you'll be able to see all of the projects listed, and you can expand it from 20 to 40 to 50 to 100 projects. So you can see the full list, and there are pages obviously, so you can go if you've got more than 100. But it'll show you essentially the incentive status and the project status. So when a project has gotten approved for the upfront incentive reservation, we will update the project status to active, as you can see in the 4th column over, and then we'll update the 3rd column over to reflect upfront incentive reserved, or so upfront reserved as it shows here. Once we receive the PTO letter and the specific documentation required with that, we will update it to the upfront paid once we've started processing that payment and it's been told by our finance team that it's been approved for mailing out those checks. And so that's at the point where we'll adjust that to upfront paid. If your project is rejected, we will mark it as rejected or correction needed. So typically, if it's correction needed, it's something in regards to missing from the document. So whether it's the contract that's missing or the sizing tool that's missing, or if it's something where the account isn't matching the address or the name on file, that we will put that correction needed into place. And you'll have 5 days starting next week to adjust that. If you are unable to adjust it within the 5 days, that project will get canceled. And then you'll just have to essentially resubmit for a new project, because as we're getting closer to the funding running out, we want to make sure that there's speed in terms of getting these applications updated. And then it's the same for rejection. We will reject projects specifically for really like the sizing requirement, or if the customer is not within our service territory or not served by us. I believe there's another, or if their account has been closed. And so we will reject it for that, in which case those projects would be rejected, and it's unlikely you'd be able to have them re-reviewed within that 5 days, unless it's something with the system size and you're able to reduce the number of batteries, change the batteries, or add solar to it, or if they're able to get re-enrolled within that time period. So that is that. In terms of the documents required, there's really 2 different steps in terms of when documents need to be submitted. So one for project approval, and that really is when we reserve that upfront incentive. So for that, we need to, make sure that customer data in those 2 steps has been entered properly. We need to make sure that participant enrollment application has been completed, signed, and is uploaded into the portal. The contract with the customer, so the contract between you as a contractor and the customer, has been uploaded. The system sizing tool, and making sure that the system size passes, and then the data authorization if the customer is recently re-enrolled, and then a change order if anything has changed within the project size or the products that are selected for that. So those 2, or the final one there with the change order, really would be after it's gotten approved. But if there are any changes, we recommend you submitting that change order as soon as possible, so we can make sure that if the incentive does need to be more, that we're adjusting that on our end as the budget continues to be depleted, or reserved, I shouldn't say depleted. And then for the incentive processing, so for that upfront incentive processing, we require a picture of the battery serial number. So that's something that'll need to be submitted. The PTO letter for specifically the battery, but if there is new solar going in, whether or not they're leveraging a solar incentive, we do need that PTO letter as well. And then the T's and C's if the battery requires it. So as I mentioned before, Tesla, Enphase, Panasonic, and Fortress do require T's and C's to be signed. And then once that has all been done, we will process that upfront incentive payment. And then the responsibilities are really shifted over to the battery manufacturer for making sure that the battery performance is getting submitted to us on a quarterly basis. And then the next tab over in the portal is the budget tab. And so you'll see here, this is an older version of the visual, but the top one is on our program webpage, and then the bottom one is what's currently available in the portal. Of course, those numbers are not accurate because this was an older version from our dev environment. But here you can see we have the remaining budget, the reserve budget, and then what's been paid so far, and then that total budget at the bottom. And this is updated in real time based on our application approval. And then finally, the updates tab. I really love this tab. It's a somewhat new update to the portal, but I think it's great because it allows you the ability to get updates from us if you're unable to attend the office hours, or if you somehow miss our weekly update email that we send on Fridays. So we've recently started updating this, so there's not a whole lot of articles in here yet, but we are trying to put in everything that we're making sure there's consistent communication on to contractors in here. So I definitely recommend using this tab, especially if you have any questions about the program or anything like that, and just wanting to stay up to date on what's going on with it as well. So that brings me to the end of this presentation. And so now we will ask for any questions that you may have. I think Jill's going to be asking those live. And then if there are any additional questions, please just fill them in the chat. And then if you do have additional questions that you're, or maybe more specific to a project or to you as a contractor, you're welcome to reach out to us at solarbatterysavings@sdcommunitypower.org. And I will open it up